Good morning, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Today is my oldest son's 22nd birthday. Oh, how I love my Shawnee. He was the one that called me mother. He was the first one to call me mother. And I just want to wish him a happy birthday. 22nd, 22, 22. Remember 22, people? I remember 22. That's when I got pregnant with Sean. And of course, I remember his birthday or his day of his birth very, very vividly. Obviously, for obvious reasons, because, he was my first. But the most that I remember that day was um, that's the day that I knew that I didn't have a voice. So here's the story. Don't I always have a story? Me and Mr. Ex-husband were living together, and we were waiting for the birth of our son. And 2-3 days before the birth, he says to me, "Well, I have to go visit a friend. I'll be back in a couple of days." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, why? Why now? We're waiting for the birth of our first son." And he was just like, "You're not gonna give birth right now. Trust me." Like he has MD behind his name. He doesn't. But he's a grown man, so I let him go. I'm like, "Hey, whatever." I went to the doctor the very next day after Mr. Ex-husband left, and my blood pressure was high. So she was like, "Oh, we have to induce you." And I'm just like, "Oh, that's great." And this is the year 2000. So cell phones were not readily available like it was now. So I couldn't text him. But anyways, I went, got my bag. It was already packed. Met the doctor at the hospital. It was Sunday, February 13th, and he was born February 14th on a Monday, which is today. Wow. And I get there, and they put all the stuff for me to induce, and in walks in Mr. Ex-husband. How he found out I was at the hospital, I have no idea. But he walks in the door, and I'm all hooked up, and I'm like, "Hey, where the fuck did you go?" Like I'm gonna wait to that day, that time to have this argument. And he was just like, "I went where I went." Oh shit. So I kept on digging, and I kept on digging, and finally he told me that he went to go visit a friend at another state. Now, come on now. Then finally it dawned on me. I said, "Wait a minute. You went to go have sex with another woman while I am about to give birth to your first son? Is that what you're telling me, Mr. Ex-husband?" I mean, if that's not a definition of an asshole, I don't know what is. And he smirked. He was just like, whatever. A couple of months later, I did find out that he went to Chicago, Illinois to go have sex with either his cousin's wife or his brother's wife. Yeah. Mr. Ex-husband was also Mr. Slimeball. So we're having this discussion or argument. At this very moment, the nurse comes in to check my vitals. I don't really think she heard the argument between me and Mr. Ex-husband verbatim, but she felt the room, and she didn't like what she felt. And this is what she said. She looked at me and she said, "Hey, if he's making you feel uncomfortable, he can wait outside in the waiting room, because the last thing you need right now is for you to be stressed while you're actively in labor." I didn't know how to thank her because I didn't know my voice. I was more worried about him missing out on his first son's birth than me. So I just want to say thank you to that nurse 22 years later. And thank you to all the nurses who make sure that their patient is number one. But I didn't take her advice. I didn't. I let him stay, and I let that slide. And that was the first of many that I allowed him to embarrass me. That was the first of many that I allowed him to treat me bad. Because remember, people will only treat you the way you allow them to treat you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not taking full responsibility for his discretions. I'm not. But I'm taking accountability for my action. I let that slide. Because I didn't have a voice. But now, I have a voice. Catch me now, people. But it's very interesting to see how much I have grown. Oh man, you can't pay me enough money to go back there. No, not at all. Sorry that this was a little lengthy. It's almost 6 minutes long. But happy birthday, my Shawnee. Enjoy 22.